So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 2023 session of the Richmond Art Gallery's Artist Salon series. My name is Kathy Tykolis. I'm the Richmond Art Gallery's Education and Public Programs Coordinator, and I'm here to host our program today and to moderate your questions. First of all, on behalf of the Richmond Art Gallery Association, I would like to welcome you to this program that is hosted by RAGA, or Richmond Art Gallery Association, which is located on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Hunkaminam speaking peoples. These are the nations that lived along the Fraser River Delta, including the Musqueam. And I would like to thank you all for joining us this evening from wherever you are Zooming in from and supporting the Richmond Art Gallery's programs. In a few moments, I will welcome our guest artist, Marcia Pitch. But before we begin, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping notes and just to introduce you to the program in case some of you are new to it. So if you haven't been to the Artist Salon before, it is a monthly series of free talks by arts professionals. It's currently hosted on the last Wednesday evening of each month from February to November. So this is our final session for 2023. The goal of the program is to offer visual artists a mix of professional development tips and advice, along with artists' personal stories and experiences to help strengthen and build up our artist community. We also hope the program helps nurture relationships between artists as a way to make connections in the community and to encourage artists out there to just keep on making and growing in your art practice. The Salon does also exist as a private Facebook group, which provides resources for artists mostly in the Lower Mainland for things such as artist calls for exhibitions or residencies, professional development workshops, local arts events, and also serves as a platform for you, our visual artist community, to connect with one another. So I welcome you to join our Facebook group. And share your own art events with each other. And you can find out more about the Artist Salon, including past recordings of this program, and the Facebook group, all on the Richmond Art Gallery's website at richmondartgallery.org. So now we're ready for a great session with Marcia. I would like to introduce our guest, who I first met her in person a few months ago when she hosted a collage party for me in the art gallery. So I'm really happy she's here with us tonight. I was really happy she agreed to be a guest artist for this tonight. I sort of forced her into it when she was doing collage party for me, because I am as a fan of her collage work, but I'm also when I started reading more about her work and this, and she's mentioned the idea of being the invisible woman, and this is a topic that has come up a lot when I talk with my friends and with other artists, as something that, as artists move throughout various stages in their life and through their art career, there are times when we feel invisible. And a lot of times, I would say in particular with women artists, we disappear for a while when life kind of takes over, whether that's family or jobs, or just not being the right fit for a certain whatever reason. So I think there's a lot of artists that kind of feel that. So I thought Marcia would be great to share some of her work and talk about that idea of invisibility, because she does sort of address it with, I think, a good sense of humor in a lot of her work. So I think we're going to be up for a really great talk tonight, and thank you all of you out there for joining us. So I'm just going to read a short bio of Marcia for those of you who might not know her work at all, and then I'll let her take it away so that I'm not taking all the camera time. So Marcia Pitch is a Vancouver-based visual artist working in installation, sculpture, assemblage, and collage. Having received her BFA from the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, she attended the California College of Arts and Crafts in Oakland, California, and the University of British Columbia, obtaining her teacher's training in art education. She has exhibited in numerous solo and group shows across Canada. A recipient of several Canada Council Visual Arts grants, her work is in many private and public collections in North America and represented in numerous catalogs. So welcome, Marcia. I will go into the background while you do your presentation, and then I will come back for the Q&A. So again, for the audience, you can put them in the Q&A box anytime. You don't have to wait till the end, and I will come back to help moderate that. So meanwhile, the floor is yours, Marcia.
Okay, well, you know who I am, so I'll just skip to the first image. There we go. Nope, I'm going back to the first image. Okay, my career as an artist has spanned over 4 decades, which gives you a clue on how old I am. And I've been an artist in Vancouver mostly. And it's, initially my career as an artist has been shaped by my early childhood experiences. I was born just after the end of the Second World War, as opposed to the First World War. And, I was raised by stories of my grandparents and my parents. They had escaped persecution in Russia, which is now Ukraine. And they were pretty scary stories for me as a child, but I have to say they did influence a lot of the things that I did in my early installation work, which you might see up on the screen right now, called War Games. These stories left me fearful. And most of the installations that I've done at that around the beginning time were in the 70s and the 80s. And, I did start off with bronze casting. And for those of you who may have tried that technique, I did some casting when I was in school, and it's very slow and laborious. And when I started using found objects, I worked a lot faster, and I could work through my process as I was thinking. It didn't take months and months of laborious work. So you might notice by these pieces on the floor. So this War Games, these are corsets and rebar and darts and rubber, and there's a game element to it. And I'm going to go on to the next slide here, which was Fearscape. So, there was a lot of fear involved from these stories, and this was in Seashell, but I think I showed this in conjunction also with the War Games show, and I traveled it in several places. I believe it was here, where it was Plug-in in Winnipeg, Ottawa at the Saw Gallery, Powerhouse in Montreal, and in the Contemporary Art Gallery. So they moved around to different places. And this piece is from a show I had at the Burnaby Art Gallery, which was called the Pitch Black Circus. I managed to get my name in there. I used the entire gallery. So I had the hallway, the ceiling, everywhere. I had all these circus feats. And at that time, I was actively involved in Amnesty International. This involvement left a profound impact on my work, and many of my exhibits reflect these human rights issues. And you can see I delve into the dark corners of our society. And I still am affected by, the stuff that I worked and the letter writing that I did for Amnesty. I use materials that are found in back alleys, hardware stores, and secondhand stores. So my primary materials I'm able to assemble very quickly. There's long underwear, rebar, foam. Rarely do I buy materials. Occasionally I go to the dollar stores now. We didn't have dollar stores when I was doing that exhibition. And I really like being able to work quickly as opposed to that long process of bronze casting. And I frequented Dressot, which is still on West Hastings, thank goodness, still around. So they had fabulous materials, and they would even have things available, unusual things that I could use in my art. And I would get an immense thrill to be able to create a whole environment. And this was at the Charles Scott Gallery, which is, I don't even know what it's called now. It's the gallery at Emily Carr School of Art. This is when they were on the island. I get a thrill that I could create this scary environment with just paper, cloth, lights, wire, sticks. I mean, I really like the idea that I use these just found cheap objects to create this frightening scene. So this is called the Boogeyman. We all know about the Boogeyman. And I'm going to move on to the next thing. So then parenthood happened to me. I transitioned into motherhood, and my artistic practice evolved to explore the complexities of domestic politics rather than world politics. And on top of it all, I was an older parent, so a double whammy. I was a mother, but an older mother, two strikes against me. And God forbid at that time you should even go into a gallery and say you had children. You wouldn't dare do that. Now I think things are different. I see young women forming their own collectives and going to residencies with their children. But at that time, it was just not a thing to say or do that you had children. And people used to refer to me, are they your grandchildren? So, you know, I was older and I had children. So I had also, the benefit was that I had all this amazing material available to me. So with 3 young children and a plethora of broken toys at my disposal, I began to incorporate these items into my artwork. Repurposing materials brought me immense joy and purpose. I was recycling and making art, kind of filling the gap between environmental consciousness and artistic creation. Like, that gives me a big thrill. So I thought maybe, so this show was, let's see, at the Dunlop, it's called Off the Wall, Decompose, Recompose, at Dunlop and Regina Pentictic Art Gallery and at the Grunt. And the Dunlop, I'm going back to this one, I was able to incorporate found paintings, replicas, prints, not real paintings. And then I would just add things to them. So I had the whole gallery with repurposed, redone pieces as well as this large wall. So I thought, okay, I can use up all the stuff all the junk I have in my studio and make one wall and just get rid of it all. And this is all around it is netting. So I thought I could just use it all up, but it only made a dent in my, I wasn't able to use it up. It only made a dent. Now, those pictures were so bad, because they're from slides. I apologize. This is a detail of it. It's pretty good compared to the other few slides, which you just saw. So it's a detail. You can see the Barbies and the plastic toys, and I love that stuff. I mean, it's junk, but I put it into art. So the juxtaposition of the cute and the sinister, the beautiful and the ugly, is a recurring theme throughout my work. And you'll see it over and over again. And then my next involvement was with mental health. And it also had a significant influence on my art practice. And through my engagement with Coast Mental Health, which is a private foundation, they have a beautiful art studio, and I've been involved with them for over 10 years. I found inspiration and a continued sense of purpose. So I always have some involvement, human rights, mental health, beside just my art, and that feeds me. And as well, I had a child with a very serious mental health issue. So working in mental health issue, it fueled my artistic drive, and it added a depth to my work. And even though they seemingly are playful pieces, there are elements of a dystopian kind of universe that provoke thought. And humor does creep into my art as a way to address the complexities of emotional instability and our lingering sense of brokenness. And that lingering sense of brokenness, again, reoccurs over and over again for me. So I had these tables. So I'm only giving you, brief pieces of this show. This was, I think, at Harcourt House in Edmonton. And I'll give you detail. So, again, I like to combine and mismatch body parts. And I do that in my collage as well. but I was doing that in my sculptures, especially in the, deviant exhibition. And then I had an exhibition at Simon Fraser called Mongrels. And now all the pieces were on a wall. This is just a sample of the pieces. But it also relates to the mix and match, taking one thing and using objects which don't relate, putting them together. And they were all on a wall. I usually have work in a room that's chock-a-block. So when you see something like this that's just singular, it's not really indicative of how I work. My exhibitions are chock-a-block. And this is from Between Madness and Delight, which was at the Reach Gallery. And again, that exhibition was chock-a-block, but I'm just going to show you some details of the madness from some of those pieces. Time is limited. I'm going to have just a little sip of water. Now, my work took a turn after receiving an abundance of exceptional magazines from a studio mate, and I gravitated in a very big way towards two-dimensional, creating collages featuring unconventional and reimagined faces. Now, again, when I chock-a-block, there's 500 of these circles on my wall. And initially, that's what I had done, but I had nowhere to exhibit them, which now we can talk about rejection. It's a constant companion for those of us who are artists on this journey. And I've encountered my fair share of rejection. And sadly, talent alone does not guarantee success. So these 500 circles do not have a home. I have exhibited a few of them in an exhibition, but not, I still have them packed away. So if anybody has a space for 500 of them, let me know. And this is another example of another one of them. So they just came off the wall. They were collage, but they did have objects on them. Then I exhibited a collection of fractured faces called About Face, and that was at the Richmond Galleria, which is near the Richmond Art Gallery. And I work very quickly. I'm fast, and I'm an intuitive worker. My style has led me to a very large, substantial body of work. Now, these collages are all 11 by 15. And that's my format because I have a scanner that can scan that size. So I don't present my work scanned, but they are all scanned if I should need them. I'm very pragmatic. So collage is an ideal, it's an ideal form of art that can be adaptable. You can do it anywhere. I mean, you can do it on your kitchen table, and it's relatively cheap, and it's much easier to store compared to the sculptures, and depending on the size that you work on. And I'll just show you a few more of these from that exhibit. So they all have to do with faces. So there's quite a few of these. I like these. I like this body of work. You'll notice, I'm going to go back, sorry. You'll notice the ripped edge. I rarely use scissors. I like the ripped edge. Now, around COVID, I discovered Instagram. This was important for me because it gave me an opportunity to share my creations and gain exposure. I found a whole community that didn't care how old I was, didn't know how old I was. on Instagram for my collage work. And I was able to exhibit in several online exhibitions, and I was in some I was in some hard copy magazines. So making connections and putting time into your craft and perseverance have all worked in my favor. And they're important if you want to achieve some recognition. And Instagram was really, really useful for me because I was just working in a vacuum. Some of you can relate to this. And so this was one of the pieces. It's a more recent piece. Again, you'll notice the ripped edge. It adds to the work for me. I might just move now into ageism. So unfortunately, ageism persists in the industry. And as an older woman artist, I've experienced dwindling responses from galleries. It's unfortunate that we are invisible and marginalized as women artists, particularly as we grow older. And, you know, it's not just artists, it's just everywhere. So galleries tend to focus more on emerging and younger artists because they think they're more marketable and trend setting. But the good news is we don't have an expiration date in that we can keep creating. So by prioritizing self-care, which is something I do, that means maintaining your physical fitness. And you can continue to create and make your voice heard. So that's what I do. I'm pretty persistent. I'm like the energy bunny. For me, also getting excited about what I do is important. And so back alley detritus still makes me salivate. I mean, like, you know, I could be kind of low and something, I find something in the back alley and then I get re-energized by it. So putting things together that are mismatched gives me a thrill. Now, let's see. Okay, now I thought, well, I'll explore the concept invisibility in the aim, sort of indirectly, of drawing attention to the issue. And so, in my most recent exhibition at the McClure Gallery in Montreal, for which I received a Canada Council, fortunately, I used the Invisible Woman as a theme. And grants, you know, it's hit and miss. You can apply one grant, the same grant one time and not get it, apply the same grant another time and get it. So if you don't apply, you don't get. So there you go. And that applies for anything, I guess. The Invisible Woman was an exhibition where I combined sculpture and digitally enlarged collages. So my collages are 11 by 15, but I enlarged them to fill a wall. You can see one of them on the wall on the left, and I'll show you more images. Now, central to this exhibition was the suggestion of a woman made of door screen. And she has flashing boobies, sort of like burlesque, like Here I Am. She's the centerpiece, and you can see through her an obvious referral to being invisible. It's another image from looking from the back, and you can see the large collages in the background. And now I'm going to show you what she really looks like in the studio without the flashing boobies. So it's just rebar. Everything comes apart. No, it's wood and rebar. It's wood, screen, wire, and ping pong balls. But this is with just easier to see that one, see her from that position. Now I'll show you what they look like enlarged. You know, I have to say I was just blown away when I got my first enlargement. Like you see stuff that you just don't see when they're small. And I had a printer who did a magnificent job. so these images, they challenge traditional views of gender, femininity, and sexuality. And I thought they looked pretty good on the wall. I had one technical problem. You can see with the humidity in the gallery, I only had these magnets at the top, and I should have probably had them at the bottom. So by the end of the exhibition, some of the bottoms were starting to curl. So I would do things differently if I were to exhibit them again. I just didn't account for that to happen. So I had the sculptures around the room. Now, unlike most of my exhibits, which are chock-a-block, I was able to space these sculptures around. So they had the room to breathe, and you could walk around and see the enlarged collages. And I'm going to show you the sculptures. Now, they're difficult. Some of these sculptures, they incorporate humor. They're a little more obscure, difficult for me to talk about, but there's joy in the materials. You can see the broken umbrella frame and broken wheels from, I don't know what toy, and the white rubber gloves and the frills and the tubing. But it's harder for me to talk about these sculptures than it is about the collage because they are more obscure. And here's the next one. This one isn't as obscure. It's called The Icing on the Cake. And there's a lampshade and cake decorations and a lamp base and the sand. This one is called Sand and Rust. Again, it's a rusty razor blade container and tubing and wire and cardboard and sand and industrial stuff. Again, everything pretty much found. And here's the funny one: glass balls and pantyhose. I use pantyhose. You can't see, I don't know if you can see the pantyhose hanging from the bottom. I use pantyhose a lot. Maybe not in the ones you've seen, but I don't know why. I like them a lot. It's hard to find used pantyhose. I have to say, I might buy them in the dollar store. And but I think this piece is more sexual than the other pieces, especially with the glass balls hanging in the pantyhose. And to wind up, here I am in my happy place. So I recycle. I take my sculptures apart, I reuse them and put them into new pieces, because for those of you who are sculptors, space is a problem. So I reuse my pieces, I recycle other things, and I get a lot of joy out of doing that. And then you can see by the picture how happy I am. So that probably ends my part of the talk. There we go.
Great. Well, thank you, Marcia. That's such a great overview of your work, and through the decades too. So if people have some questions, please put them up in the Q&A and we will go through them. We had one quite early on, so I'll read you that one first from Antoinette. I am a painter, and my early work in the 80s was also influenced strongly by my long involvement with Amnesty International. I'm curious to know, as a woman, if you were criticized for doing work about war. I was in Saskatchewan then and very criticized and was told women shouldn't do this type of work.
No, of course. I mean, you saw the pieces from the no one ever said anything to me about it, but I mean, mine are not that clear that that's what it was about. I was influenced by it, and the feats of at the Burnaby Art Gallery were clearly torture-esque. No one ever said that to me. So I guess it would depend on the work that you did.
Right. And well, then you did talk too about just the criticism you had, from what it sounded like, was more about just being a woman and being a mom.
And my God.
And so that was that, I mean, it is so different now, because
it is so different now.
but then you're still facing, like, I'm curious, like, because you said you're still facing this ageism, and that Instagram opened up a new role to you. So what kind of, like, what difference did you see from Instagram audiences versus what you were normally
Well,
encountering?
one is nobody really does know how old you are. Oh, now you all know how old I am. So when you present your images, nobody has a clue how old you are.
So was the response quite different? Like, what sort of responses were you
They
getting?
just look at your work.
All right.
They don't know what color you are. They don't know how old you are. They don't know where you come from. You're judged just by the quality of your work.
Right, right.
That's new today.
Yes. Right. So other question, Denise was just wondering, what do you mean by chocolate block?
Oh, chocolate blocks. So I have 500 pieces on that wall, which you did see. So when I had the show at Simon Fraser, the Mongrels, I had two walls, and they were filled with those sculptures on little ledges that I made, like maybe 100 of them. So that's what I mean by chock a block. And then when I had another show, which I showed just some of them, the tables were packed. So, like, I didn't really have just one isolate, like in the show in Montreal, I had the sculptures had room all around them. And I tend to like that crowded look, that mass of humanity kind of look. So that's what I meant by chock a block.
Right. Someone was asking Dawn, who said she's known you and John for many years, and she remembers you making jewelry. Do you not make jewelry anymore?
I had a business with a business partner.
Really? Hmm.
Unfortunately, she's gone. Yeah, you know what? Here, the thing is, we were doing so well that we had to either expand or quit.
Hmm.
And so, and we both had kids, I think, at that we both got pregnant at the same time. So we either had to go big or go home. We went home, and Martha Sturdy at the same time, she went big.
Right, yes.
So, you know, yeah.
Would you ever pick that up again, do you think?
I'm so busy with Coast Mental Health. I'm so busy with them. And I do a lot of stuff besides just go there once a week when they have exhibitions and stuff. I still make some jewelry occasionally. But, soldering and etching, and I don't think so. I don't think so.
Right,
I never say no. You never know, right?
right. Question connected to your mentioning Coast Mental Health. Shauna says she also volunteers at Coast
She
Mental
does.
Health.
Yeah.
And has your many years of volunteering there really influenced your art? Maybe you could talk about how it has, or.
I think maybe indirectly it has. When I say that I rip my pages, that torn edge, that's how it influences me.
Right.
I see some sadness,
Right.
and I get back a lot from there. When I leave, and she knows when we leave, they say thank you so much for coming.
Right. Nice. Dawn was also asking, what is your current passion or specific cause?
I'm still very actively involved in Coast Mental Health,
Mhm.
if that's what she's referring to.
Right. Well, and just, you'd mentioned Amnesty International earlier.
Yeah, yeah, I was very involved in Amnesty when they didn't pay you as a volunteer.
Right.
I'm not. I write letters. I'm a letter writer. Still write letters, but I'm not actively involved in Amnesty anymore.
Right.
They do so much.
A lot of questions, so I'm just going to go through them as they came in. Beth asked, how do you overcome the invisibility issue in your artwork promotion?
I'm the shits at promoting. I mean, I need an agent. I'm terrible. It's not my forte. I'm not very good. I wish I was, but you know what? I need help. Maybe she could tell me what to do. I really, promoting is not my strength. I'm terrible.
But you've had quite a few shows like in the last year or so.
Persistence,
Persistence.
persistence, persistence, persistence.
Right.
I mean, if you don't submit, I can't tell you how many proposals I have sent out.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and are you mainly looking for exhibitions, or are you looking for like more commercial representation or residencies? Like, is there something you're kind of got your sight set on?
I thought it might be fun to do a residency sometime. I just haven't gotten there yet. I would like to sell my collages, so I thought maybe I could figure out how to do that on Instagram, which I have. But I just really want to keep making new work. Like I don't want to show you, I've got a whole bunch of new stuff in my studio, sculpture stuff actually, because I go back and forth to just make some new stuff. I never know where it's going to go until I kind of start. It takes a while. And sometimes, like every 10 years, I feel like quitting. Well, the first time it happened, I thought I was going to quit. And then I got back and everything was okay. Then I realized every 10 years, the same thing happens. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just that, so now I'm used to it. It's just you have to recharge. You burn out, you have to recharge, and then you just go back into it. But so that keeps me going, knowing that 10 years might be coming up and then I'll get over it and then I'll just keep going. I don't have a whole lot of 10 years left ahead of me, but.
Right. Expanding on that again about collage, Nicole asked, based on your experience as a collage and sculptural artist, do you have any advice for an artist who originally started in painting but is afraid of moving towards a different medium for fear of what real art is in terms of sellability?
Well,
there is something.
Yes, and it's a very good question because I use mixed art. I use mixed paper. Mixed paper is not archival, so that's a problem. That's a problem because when you present your collages, they're not archival, and paintings are archival, I believe. So you have a couple options. You can print them digitally, and then they're archival, or you can go and copy a whole bunch of stuff and make them on archival paper and then rip them up. I know someone who did that. So then they're archival. So that's, for me, there's a problem with the archival thing, but collage artists have been doing it for centuries or decades. And that's just the nature of collage. I've accepted that. My original collages are not archival. They cannot be in the sun.
Right. Right. And in terms
of, do it. I mean, what have you got to lose? It's paper.
And just in terms of sellability, I mean, I do think collage is having its day in the sun again. I mean, it kind of does every, kind of goes up and down, but I do think it's having its day in the sun again. So don't let that turn you off from making something you want to make. I think.
When you're talking about saleability, you're talking to the wrong person.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I work at a public gallery. We don't sell anything. So, but I do think, your comment about persistence is so true for every artist. Just keep doing it. And, if you don't try it, you never know what's going to happen.
Of course not. I mean, you can give up and then you'll never know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Another sort of big juicy question, that's a big topic, from Kelsey. Can you speak more to the balance of being an artist and motherhood over time, the journey of balancing the two?
Well, you have kids, right? So you're not going to have kids because you're an artist. I mean, I had kids. I did the best I could. and I muddled through it, and I used their toys in my art. And you do what you got to do. You make the best of every situation. And now, of course, I see all these young mothers. I don't know, young. I see all these mothers exhibiting and showing together. It's not so much an obstacle. The exhibition is, as a matter of fact, they're so supportive of each other. They're getting exhibitions and stuff. So that's not so detrimental as it used to be. And, people do it. People did it. People do it. People will do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did you find time? I think that's the biggest.
I had help.
Right. Yeah.
I also shared a babysitter with a friend for a while. You figure it out. Or you do it on your kitchen table at night. I think in Montreal, I did a collage workshop, and this woman, that's what she did.
Mm-hmm.
The journey's important. The journey's important. You get pleasure out of doing it. I mean, that's also part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Another interesting question from Emily. Are you often asked about your education? My husband and I are both artists, and I am constantly asked this question, but he is not. So just wondering if you had any experience with this.
Nobody seemed to care that I had a degree.
Hmm.
Well, of course, I was a teacher, was an art teacher in Burnaby for not a whole long time, but I did teach for a while. Did anyone, you mean when I presented my art, nobody cared whether I had an education. But if you want to teach at school, I mean, at Emily Carr, you need to have that degree. Mm-hmm. Not just the first degree, you need a master's or something.
Yeah.
So for that, you need a degree. But no one ever asked me. I was never asked about my education in terms of my art abilities.
Right. I think too that maybe has changed it a lot. It seems like now so many artists have master's degrees because that's like almost what they're being asked for, which is definitely newer. like that wasn't the case back when I was going to school. No. But it's definitely changed.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Sandra asked, as a female Asian schizophrenic artist, I feel I'm starting behind the starting line against male or non-disabled artists. How do you feel about the status of female artists during your career? Are we typecast in a way?
Of course we are. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've had our due. I mean, I am seeing now in some of the bigger museums, I see some of the older women are getting their due. They're really good artists. I mean, they're getting their dues, but I don't think it's trickled down.
Right. For me, just from what I've seen, it feels like it just takes longer. Like a male artist will get the retrospective when they're like 45, much younger, whereas a woman, it'll be like in her 60s, maybe.
Yeah. I'm not holding out for that, by the way.
But it seems like for an artist that has worked for a very long time, for women, it seems to take even longer to get that recognition.
Of course it does.
Which is very frustrating.
And I'm sure that's in many other fields as well.
True. Well, touching on that, Claire has said, it seems to me that ageism does affect women who start as artists later in life, example, after they have children or after their children leave home. They are emerging, but middle-aged. So have you seen that or noticed that?
Well, I started as an artist before I had children. But what I did notice, and I went to art school in Manitoba eons ago, but from what I can see, you make some very important connections in art school. And if you go on residencies, I see people make some very important connections. Mm-hmm. And now I didn't go to school here. Right. I see those connections are very important. Mm-hmm. I don't have those connections. I think those connections are important.
Oh, for sure.
They're not the be all and end all, but they can be very useful. Because I said, I met him on a residency in Ireland. Then, well, yeah, so we got the show together in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
That's helpful.
Yes, definitely. That's definitely the big perk about school for sure, and residencies, and why so many artists do that in terms of the residencies as well. A question from Robin. Your last work is sparse compared to the density. Is this a shift in practice or temporary for the exhibit in Montreal?
It was just because of the space that was there. I had, so many sculptures. I probably could have brought more. And it was kind of nice. I hadn't intended it to be that way. It was kind of nice that you could really walk around and see each piece for an individual piece rather than a mass. However, these sculptures were different than the little critters.
Right.
So, although it's true, I had shown in North Vancouver with a group of women a variation of this invisible woman, and they were more tightly together. So you could only see it as a group, but you couldn't really see each sculpture individually. So I thought it was kind of nice, but it wasn't, I hadn't really thought that one through. It just turned out that way.
Right. Right. So it's not a new direction you're going into necessarily.
Not necessarily, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Depends on the space.
Right. Right. Yvonne asks, she's really drawn to the About Face series, and I see connections to Hannah Hawke's work. Has her work been an inspiration to you?
Absolutely, absolutely my favorite. Absolutely a huge inspiration for me. Yes, you read my mind. Absolutely. I just adore her work. The best.
Mm-hmm.
And she uses paper, which is just so great.
Yes. Here's a more technical question from Johanna. How do you clean your found objects?
I don't.
So the alley desk comes
I
with
mean, I generally don't. Because I like them dirty.
Right.
Rusted, dirty. I mean, there's a limit to dirt, but generally I like them looking old and rusted and dirty.
Right.
Just like me.
Monique has a question of, do you have strategies other than making work to keep you engaged with your studio work?
I spend time walking down the alleys. That keeps me going.
Right.
I mean, I have a dog which I share with Robin, and Maisie's probably watching. But I'm looking for materials in just strange places. It's helpful for me. It gets me excited. It gets me motivated. And I don't pick up everything. I see something and it speaks to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you were asking me?
Yes, I think so. Margot's asking if you could tell us a little bit more about what kinds of materials you use other than the found stuff. So again, more technical, like what glues or fixatives or resins,
Glues.
that
Oh,
kind of stuff.
goodness.
Yes. I remember we had a bit of a conversation during collage party about glue, but
okay. So I used Dessert's glue. I'll just bring it to you.
Sure.
I use this. If it's really big, I have a problem. I have used Yes Glue. The problem is it's wet and it makes the paper ripple. But I'm now experimenting with that paper you gave me, Kathy.
The Yupo.
I haven't done it yet. But then I also bought thicker paper.
Right.
So I have problems because I use different variations of paper. And then when I glue it, this is the best. If I can get it all on, then I put it on in between a pad of paper with some sort of like a wax paper, whatever they call it. And then I put a very heavy weight on it for overnight so that it's as flat. But I do have sometimes problems with bubbles. Gluing can be a real problem. If you have a big piece to glue, it's a real problem. I haven't found the ideal glue. I mean, if the stick came bigger, I would be happier.
And what about your sculptures? How do they come together?
I mean, glue. Oh, so I'm really good at putting things together. So screws, nuts, wire. I can just figure out how to put anything together. I've got a lot of experience.
Right.
I used to use glue, a lot of glue. I don't use glue so much because I like things to come apart so I can ship them or move them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Question about, seeing as we're looking at your studio, someone's asking if it's ever open to the public.
No.
No. Okay.
No, it's
We
not.
also asked where it is, but you might not want to say that.
No. Well, just that there are other people in the studio and they don't want it open to the public. If you're a friend of mine, you can call me. Yeah, it's not one of those East Side open studios. Uh, just yeah. You can follow me on Instagram. We can chat
Right.
about stuff or materials or whatever.
Right.
I'm happy to share technique. I mean, I know this guy, he actually uses a paper glue, paper, but he cuts each piece out precision wise. And then he has no bubbles, but then I wouldn't get a ripped edge.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay, so I'm just sort of scrolling through the questions again. Just have people saying hi to you. Uh, someone's asking about, in reference to your tenure phases, going in and out. At present, this person's not feeling inspired, so is resting and feeling burnt out. So what do you do to get back into it when you are hitting that burnt out phase?
Don't panic. Don't panic. Because you'll get your energy back. I mean, that's my advice. Because I was just ready to give it all up. So don't panic, and do all the things you need to do to recharge, whether it's looking for materials or sketching or come to coast, or whatever it takes. And don't panic, because it's a cycle. And then if it really is meant that you're not supposed to do it, do something else.
Right. So when you're working, like, do you do, like, say today is collage day and just work on a bunch of those, or do you go between sculptures and collage and installation? And how do you work in the studio?
I think I can't move between sculpture and collage in the same day, like back, but I can do several collages in one day, and then I have to clean them up on Photoshop. So, just the white edges,
Mm-hmm.
just to make them clean so I can scan them or just store them. And then what I do frequently is I cull. I have so many. I cull them, and if they're not really good, I rip them up or I redo them. I rework them. I don't have to keep anything that's mediocre.
Right.
I have a lot of them.
Yeah. I think that's more going back to that, you were saying that persistence, but also just keep, like, just to keep on going so that you're not so precious
Yeah,
with everything.
reusing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can see how that can be really motivating as well, just because you have so much to draw from. You can rework something or toss it out or whatever. I can see that as being a really positive way of working, and also having a lot to show if someone does come knocking on that door.
Yeah, the door's open. Sort of.
Sandra just was saying, not so much a question, but I love your juxtaposition of images and torn edges and sculptural ingenuity. You have positive energies juxtaposed against darker imagery, and find a really interesting contrast there. So she has a real appreciation for your work. I work through my pain through my work, and yes, I panic at times. Thanks, Sandra. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about some of the humor? Like, you seem to always have some humor in your work.
It just comes out, right? And sometimes more in some things than others. didn't come out so much in the sculptures, except for the flashing boobs. You know, it's just part of it's just sort of part of me. You know, I like that sarcasm and that twist. It's that twist, and humor has that underlying truth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always intentional, but I just really like that cheekiness.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Well, and I can see too that connection to Hannah Hawk as well. The, you know, dark imagery or dark themes done in a real humorous way. Well, that whole Dada movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think because we're now at 8 o'clock, but thank you everyone for so many questions. That was great. Made my job much easier where I don't have to come up with all the questions. This was great. And a lot of comments of people that loving your work and love you and are so happy to see you're working, and for your keeping everybody charged up and your positive energy. So I want to thank you, Marcia, and thank you everybody out there who joined us tonight. And sorry I didn't get to every question, but I think I got to most of them. Did you want to let us know anything that might be coming up for you or anything happening, Marcia?
No, I don't have anything planned in the next little while. Although somebody said they were interested in my work in the next few years, and I thought, time is ticking. I don't think you realize the invisible woman's becoming invisible. Anyway, that's kind of funny, but no, I don't have anything planned right now, but I am planned after this talk that I'm going to start to work on all the sculptural stuff that I'm doing and give my collage a rest for a bit.
Right. Great. Well, we look forward to it.
Thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you, Kathy, for setting it up.
Right. Well, yes. Thanks, everyone. I'm really glad you said yes to me when I cornered you, Marcia. So thank you for being a part of this. And thanks, everybody. As mentioned, this is our last session for 2023. We'll come back to you in February 2024. And the plan is live stream plus in person, where we're going to do some hands-on stuff too. So stay tuned and have a good winter holiday season, I guess, which is coming up next. So thank you, everyone, and have a good night. Bye.